So to kick things off, I do start with the same boring ass question every time. Simple introduction, man. Who are you? And just a little background on yourself.
My name is Chris. I sing for a band called Hillhaven. Anybody who's listening may or may not have seen me with a number of other bands as a guitar player in the past. I've played with Ice Nine Kills for a little bit. The band that I'm probably most known for playing for is one that everyone will just have to Google. And then I used to be in a band called Galactic Empire where I dressed up like Darth Vader for a few years. And and then I have a band called Illustrium, which is like a progressive death metal project that I've had since high school. So there may or may not be a few obscure
Yeah.
people who know what that band is. But yeah, that's my whole thing. I'm qualified for pretty much one thing.
Yeah.
So
Guitaring. And that's
yeah.
guitaring and vocals.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, music. That's it. That's all I got.
yep. That's awesome, man. And I feel like I knew and it didn't register until you said it. So Galactic Empire, for anybody that doesn't like truly understand what it is, it was this super dope as a Star Wars fan. It was the most dope fucking like we're gonna take Star Wars canon kind of and make metal songs and just rock the fuck out. So like for you, what kind of inspired some of that idea that like this is something nobody's really touched on before?
Yeah, that was much like everything that I seem to start in adulthood. It's just like almost just
A
like a
fever dream of
joke.
shit.
Yeah, like a joke or like wouldn't it be funny? Kind of conversation. Uh but yeah, the guys that I started the band with who still run the band now, Grant McFarlane and Carson Slovak, they operate a recording studio called Atrium Audio in Lancaster, PA. And that's how I met them was I was interning there during college. And there was a period of time where I think I had just gotten done with like the first tour I ever did, and I was working at Sam Ash, which no longer exists. Um, but working at a music store, and Grant hit me up and he said that um he wanted to do a drum playthrough video. At least I think that was the timeline. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
He did a drum playthrough video for the Imperial March. Just him drumming over the orchestra.
Yeah.
And at the time, Instagram videos weren't really a huge thing. Like YouTube was kind of the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, let's see if we can get a million views on this. So I helped him engineer that. Just kind of ran the board while he did the video, and then a little bit later, he released that, and I think it got probably like quarter of a million views or
Yeah.
whatever. Not certainly not anything to scoff at, especially back then. And It was just kind of like, cool, good job, man. All right, it was a neat idea. Bye,
Right.
and then he hit me up at one point and was like, hey, like I'm thinking of expanding on that. Like what if we did like a playthrough with the whole band or something? And and I can't remember exactly where the like how the conversation got here, but I know there was kind of a conversation of like, are we gonna add parts, like add guitar
Right.
parts the way that he added a drum part over the song, or like how are we gonna do this, and eventually we settled on basically what we would do is a literal one-to-one with the orchestra.
Yeah.
And Grant is a machine with this stuff. He has perfect pitch, so he was able to sit down and just listen to the orchestra and literally just pick out every part by
Yeah.
ear and just put it on a MIDI lane, and then we just re-recorded that stuff with real guitars. And so we did the Imperial March, and then we were like, well, we got to do the main theme if we're going to
Right.
be doing this. And then so we had those two songs like demoed out, and uh and then it started, with, and then because he and Carson worked so closely together, of course he was involved by that point, um, and then it just got to like it was, just stupid ideas in a text
Yeah.
thread of like, well, we should do a video, but if we do a playthrough, like, probably be funny if we were in costumes. And then, but like if we're in costumes, probably be lame if we're just in the studio. Like I
Right.
wonder, like wonder if we can find a green screen or something, But if we find a green screen, like, we need somebody, like obviously we need to pay somebody to film it, and like that could get expensive, and we gotta get the actual 3D art to go on the green screen,
Right.
for the video. And so it just kind of like snowballed into this really stupid, like impossible idea. But then somehow, because I think Carson's dad is a partner with this company. It's this film studio called Aurora Films, which is also in the Lancaster area. Um, and I guess Carson talked to them, and they were like, "That sounds hilarious. Like, we'll do it for free."
Which
Um,
is insane because that
yeah.
easily was tens of thousands of dollars worth of
At least
work.
at least 10 grand for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. That they were just like, fuck, who cares? It sounds awesome. Like, and then they found this like 3D graphics guy in like Germany or something. They found him on like Deviant Art or
Yeah.
something, like I don't even know if that site still exists. Um, and whatever, just like kind of so the day that we were going in to film the video, like Grant and I stopped at the door and just like looked at each other like, can you fucking believe that like we're about to go do this? So we did the video, and Carson had built a bunch of practical effects, and so we had green screen shots and we had practical shots, and a full film crew, with the jib and the whole
Right.
thing, like, and like you're on a movie set, and we're just in these like $700, like the top end Halloween
Right.
costume versions of these costumes, just dying inside. I mean, just like especially me, there's so many layers to the Vader costume, and like the jumpsuit that is at the heart of the whole thing.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, they were the like expensive Halloween costumes. So there was no, it was not built with the idea that you would be spending several hours in this thing. It's
Right.
like you're gonna put this on, you're gonna walk around with your kid for like an hour in relatively cold weather,
Yeah.
and then you're done. But so we were in those outfits for like 8 hours, and the way that the shoulder piece worked, like I couldn't lift my arms past here, so I couldn't
Right.
reach my helmet, and my helmet was like three parts. So if I needed to, in between takes, everybody else could just remove their
Pop
helmet
it
and
off
take a
and take some
break.
water or whatever.
I
Yeah.
was just, I had to have interns coming onto the green screen with booties on their shoes, taking my helmet off, giving me a sip of water, giving me a bite of pizza, putting everything back on. It was fucking miserable. And also I was like, I was significantly heavier than I am now when we were doing those videos, and so we bought the biggest sized costume that we could, and I like just fit into it.
Right.
So I couldn't sit down in that costume either.
Yeah.
It was like just big enough to fit on my body while I was completely upright. So
Right.
I was just like stuck, like upright and just sweating and dying all fucking day. But we put the video out when The Force Awakens came out,
Hmm.
the day that that movie was dropping in theaters, and we put it out at like 3 p.m. on
Yeah.
Facebook because we knew everybody was standing in line. And it was the same thing as the drum video. It's like, I think we could get 1 million views on this thing, and we got the first 1 million views in like 6 hours or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like we were just watching it like skyrocket, and we're like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? Um, and then it hit the million, and we were all stoked, and we were like, hell yeah, boys, like killed it, good job. But like also that's it.
Right. That
Bye,
should have been it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got this email like a month later, maybe even less, because we were getting it like it wasn't just that like the video itself was getting a ton of views on YouTube and Facebook. It was getting like mainstream news
Right.
coverage. Like
Yeah.
it was like on like national and local television, like people covering this stupid video that we did. And then we got an email from somebody at the television channel,
Hmm.
and they were like, "Hey, we're doing we're covering the Oscars this year, and obviously Star Wars is all anybody's talking about. So we want you to come to LA and play during our red carpet coverage." And
Okay.
we
Yeah.
we were like, "Hey, you don't understand. We don't know how to do any of this. Like, we've never played this shit before. This, like, we pieced this together. This is a joke.
Right.
And like, it's impossible to play in these costumes." That was the funniest comment, that we got so many of those comments of like, "I call bullshit. They can't play that in those gloves." It's like, yeah, no shit, dude.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like you see the music video of Beyonce on a mountain, you just think she's singing real loud. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you
Yeah.
can hear it over the helicopter that's filming her, you know what I mean? Um, it's all miming. But yeah, so we were like, we don't even know like how we would do this. And they were like, yeah, the costume thing could be tough because like I don't know if we could do that with Lucasfilm or whatever. And we're like, yeah, so like there's no way, right? And they were like, I mean, if you want to figure it out, we'll pay you to come out here. We'll pay your way while you're out here
Right.
too. And we were like, "Ah, fuck, okay." So we just got a bunch of fucking black robes and
Yeah.
went out and flew out to LA. And our first show ever as a band was on national television in broad daylight at the Roosevelt Hotel in front of the pool and a bunch of palm trees. There was a fashion show going on behind us. It was the most ridiculous fucking thing I think any of us still
It's
have
another
ever
fever
done.
dream, man. Like this
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
No, none of it made sense. And it was like, it was just like, dude, what the fuck? Like we have no business being here. And E Entertainment, red carpet coverage, the hosts are like the most like just pleasant, flamboyant people you've ever
Right.
met in your entire life. And we're all just like socially awkward, like damn near autistic nerds, like just like, hi. Um, and yeah, so we just played one song. We just and I think it was like an abridged version too, because
Yeah.
the main theme is like 7 minutes long or something like that. So we
Yeah.
Grant trimmed it down to like 2.5 minutes or something. Um, yeah, so just like you said, a fever dream for a couple of minutes on
Yeah.
TV, and then out there is when we wound up, talking to Dave Shapiro, who wound up being our booking agent, and he hooked us up with Rise for the record deal. And then it was just like, okay, well, now we're making an album, and now we're doing more videos, and now we're getting tours. And like it was just like it was the strangest way to start a touring career
Right.
that I could possibly imagine. Certainly not one that teenage, camo short wearing metalhead elitist
Yeah.
Chris would have approved of. But yeah, it was just like it was a good time, man. Like it was a few solid years of just playing shows that we had no business playing. I mean, like major European festivals to, 15 to 20,000 people, opening in arenas for fucking Ozzy, and
Yeah.
um just all kinds of insane stuff with this
Right.
stupid band. Um and then in 2018 we got invited to Japan to do some opening shows, and then that's how I wound up in the gig that shall not be named.
Hmm.
Um so like my my career started in the way that like I always say it's like the way that people who don't work in music thinks that careers start
Yeah.
in music is like, you just had an idea, and then it got huge, and then a manager showed up and was like, "You're ready for the big time, kiddo." Like that's not how this works, but that's what happened.
Right. Yeah.
So very, very strange. Even talking about it now, it's like it sounds like I'm making it up,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, even if you were to go back in time and tell, 15-year-old Chris that, hey, this is about to happen, this is what you have to look forward to. Like, no, you just lied about everything straight to my face. There's no way that works at
Well,
all.
and also I think 15-year-old Chris would have been like, bro, that's gay. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no way, dude. Like, you're telling me I'm playing metalcore in a Star Wars outfit? Get the fuck out of here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
never in a million years would young Chris have considered himself in that role, you know? Um, it was but like I think in a weird way, like that was a big maturing point for me, because it was like it was the realization that like um everybody who gets into the music industry to be a player. I think just about everybody, at least, like goes in with the idea that like I'm gonna start a band. We're gonna write songs, we're gonna get signed, it's gonna get huge, and like
Mhm.
that's gonna be my life. And that whole like progression of my career just sort of taking off within a few months um was the proof that like there are so many ways for a career to spawn, and you'd never really have any idea, like, if success is going to come, and most importantly where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's no way I could have predicted that. Like I would go to college for audio because I was just expected to go to college, so I picked a bullshit school with a bullshit
Right.
program, and then my internship that I had to get because the college sucked and couldn't get me an internship would ultimately be the thing that got me completely away from any sort of academia and
Right.
like it actually doing what I wanted to do. Like I also think that, I mean, how many people can say that, like, yeah, technically my college internship is what got me touring. If you
Right.
like really
Yeah.
want to distill it like as far down as you can. Like I think I'm probably one of the only professional musicians who can say like, yeah, maybe stay in school, like go to college, and
Right.
that might get you there,
Yeah. Yeah.
like.
It is definitely the rare path, it feels like, because now it's, I shouldn't even say now, like just the way that the music industry has traditionally worked, it seems like it's, well, try a year or two of college, but definitely drop out and put everything, all your eggs in that one basket, and just hope that it works, because that's
Yeah.
obviously what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially like, I mean, there's that famous like the famous Berkeley thing of
Hmm.
like if you graduate from Berkeley,
You'll never
you're
be in
not
the music
making it.
industry.
You're
Yeah.
not making it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like you need to enroll in Berkeley and then severely disappoint your parents a year in, and then
Yeah.
you're probably on the right track, you
Yeah.
know.
Which is
Um,
such a
you know.
wild thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I obviously I didn't go to Berkeley, but I feel like most of us who go to school for music related things, we're already kind of disappointing our parents to begin with. So it's
Right.
just like you got to really hit them with that double whammy before you can make it. It's like the
Yeah.
price of the cost of entry.
Yeah, for sure. Just quickly, was there any concern, probably not at the initial point, but like, was there any concern of like cease and desist or any legal action from Lucas when you like started to see the traction?
Yeah, not really, because it was all like parody, fair use kind of stuff.
That's what I assumed
Um,
it fell under.
Yeah, well, it got where it became a conversation was the costumes live.
Right. Yeah.
Because once you're playing live shows, you're charging ticket admission and you're selling merch and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and then you can get hit with something like that. So, um, any photos or videos you see of us playing live, they're altered costumes,
Yeah.
both to protect us legally and also to physically be able to perform, which still very much had their challenges. I mean, the visors on my helmet, where I was supposed to see from, would fog up pretty much every show,
Right.
and it would be impossible to see anything. So I was looking through the vent in my face,
Yeah.
the little triangle here,
Yeah.
and I had maybe about this much, like, an inch and a
Yeah.
half,
Field of
maybe, if
view
I was
for it.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and I had far from the worst helmet. Carson had built all of these himself, and it was incredible, but um there was also things where like he asked for everyone's like head circumference so
Hmm.
that he could sort of fit the helmets to us, which was a really good idea, but he didn't do any measurements as to like where on the y axis our
Yeah.
eyes and stuff would be. So at the time, the guy in the Red Guard outfit was my best friend and the writing partner for Illustrium. His name's Mike. He was playing rhythm guitar for us, and his the usual Imperial Guard thing is just a single
Hmm.
horizontal slit, right? His was sort
Yeah.
of Boba Fett style. There was like a horizontal and a vertical
Yeah.
one, but the horizontal one was on his forehead. So he was looking through like this. I have this picture. It would be difficult for me to dig up in, the years and years of
Yeah.
photos and stuff. But still to this day, I think the funniest fucking picture from the entirety of like my time in Galactic Empire was right before the first show. Somebody took a picture of Mike ready to go on stage, and you just see his eyes through the fucking like where they're not supposed to
Yeah.
be, and he just looks really upset. And man, it's still like my favorite picture ever. um and yeah, so we would call ourselves like grocery store off-brand
Yeah.
Star Wars
The great
characters.
value Star Wars.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But like we did a convention one time, and it was like a Philly Comic Con or something, and we were walking in to go to our booth, and we were in our stage gear, not our
Right.
normal, not the screen accurate costumes, and some guy at the escalator, one of like the volunteers or whatever, seemed to be kind of offended by our
Because they
by our
were,
presence because
yeah,
they
they
weren't
weren't
legit.
quite
Yeah.
accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "What are you supposed to be? Some sort of discount Star Wars characters?" And I don't know what came over me, but I responded loudly and immediately of like, "What are you supposed to be? Some discount security guard?" Um, I got I got real defensive for a sec. But no, but like we would lean into that shit too in the live show just to make sure that we were still kind of being funny and like making
Right.
it a parody just in case there was any sort of legal case to be made of like, well, it's still implied that you're these
Right.
characters and that, you know what I mean? So like we would lean into the fact that, everyone's telling us we're not movie accurate and whatever. Oh, there would be a bunch of pre-recorded bits that I would do to, and
Yeah.
then I would mime during the show to pretend to be Darth Vader and whatever. So um yeah, it was a wild time, man. And you can imagine what doing interviews for that band was
Oh,
like
I'm
too.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like we would do our best to be like, hey, like written interviews, no problem. If you want in-person interviews, it should just be interviewing the person about the
Right.
band. If you want like on camera, in character interviews, you got to send us the questions in advance. We need to be able to overdub the audio. Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And we would try to be really clear with people about that, but still I would wind up in an, just sitting standing in my street clothes, outside of the artist tent at a festival, and this person's there with a notepad asking me what my plans are for the rebel scum in the area. And I'm just like, I don't fucking know, man. Like I'm not Darth Vader, like it
Right.
would it would get incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
And that's wild to me because, like, you know, I grew up to this day still a wrestling fan and stuff, and like kind of the same thing, right? Like you're, or even just interviewing movie, actors and whatnot. It's like, why are we talking as if you're in character when I'm talking to the person? You know what I mean? Like you
mhm.
said, just if you want in character, that's fine. I just need to be aware so that we can be ready for all of that. Because like,
Right.
it would be similar to even on a music side. Hey, we want to, we've kind of gotten off topic a little bit with Galactic, but like we're going to talk about
Yeah, it's all
Hillhaven,
right.
and we all go down that path, and it's like, oh, we went this whole episode and didn't talk about the fucking band that he's doing now. um
Right, right.
but I think I guess my point is, like as a music journalist, it's almost a respect thing too. Like, not saying that they were intentionally disrespectful or whatever, but like it's a little bit of a respect thing to protect that project, that like I'm not going to fuck you over and make you answer questions out of character, or try to make you answer them in character when you're not in costume, things like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
I mean, I also think that like most of the people that were doing interviews for us weren't explicitly music journalists.
right.
They were Star Wars journalists. They were
Right.
Comic-Con journalists. They were, you know what I mean? So they were a little bit um sort of unsure of like how to
Yeah.
approach this thing, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I don't necessarily blame them, but you know, there's also like uh not that I'm proud of it, but like there, you know, there was kind of the ego thing there too.
Yeah.
Not that I was out here like, oh, I'm the shit because I'm in a fucking cheap Darth Vader costume. It was
Right.
just that like, you know, when you start a band, whatever kind of band it is, and it seems to be doing relatively well and it's getting attention and you start getting interviews, you're kind of hoping that somebody's interested in talking to you. And then when they
Right.
start asking you, you know, questions that they would ask discount Darth Vader, like, you know, it like hurts your pride a little bit, you
Yeah.
know, where you're just like, man, like I thought I was gonna like talk about, I thought I was coming here to like chat with you about my band and stuff and like
Yeah.
what, you know, what's happening on the tour, like what the plans are or whatever, and you're just asking me how Palpatine is. Like I don't, you know, this
Right.
it's not a real person. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've never met anybody from the franchise. I can't even begin to try to think of an answer right now. You know,
Right.
it's just like, so, but yeah, it wasn't their fault. It was just it was a fucking weird, silly, like unbelievable thing that shouldn't have happened. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was a complete accident.
But I think, I've never interviewed the guys, but I kind of feel like Guar's kind of the same thing, right? Like it started kind of as a fucking joke. And now there's
Yeah.
so much goddamn lore to what Guar is and all of that. And it's like, oh, this is a much bigger deal. So no, I think that's really cool because I don't think my assumption is most listeners probably don't realize that that was you. So like it's cool to hear that type of a story where like it also is kind of that like empowering story of take the fucking chance even if it's a joke. Take the chance to do the
Yeah.
thing that sounds fun because you never know what might work.
Right, right. And I mean, yeah, I wound up in a like a, you know, a pretty cushy like professional gig as a result of it. And so now, you know, moving into my 30s and starting this new band and whatever, like obviously it's still, you know, it's still scary in certain ways and
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of uncertainty around it, you know, and there's obviously it's you know, our Hillhaven's lineup is a bunch of guys that tour full time. So
Mm-hmm.
like there's definitely a lot of like, well, how's this going to work? And we're sort of figuring it out as we go. But it's a lot less scary with all of the you
Right.
know time behind me now, you know, like you know with the you know you have a lot of friends in the business and people that you can go to for advice and things to kind of help you you know maybe skip a couple of steps or avoid a couple of pitfalls that you might have to otherwise deal with, you know, if you're just like a you know an inexperienced band kind of starting from scratch. So um yeah, I mean, if you want to be a musician, like you want to be a professional player, just fucking take whatever the first thing is that comes and see what happens. You can
Yeah.
always leave, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key is, and maybe you've got some experience in recognizing that too, but like you said, you can always leave. Like it doesn't have to be permanent. If it's not working, take a step back, figure out something
Right.
else to do.
Yeah. And I mean that's happened to me more than once, you
Yeah.
know, where so I was in a, you know, you know, playing for a particular band and at, you know, maybe from the onset it might have seemed like okay, maybe this could be a permanent thing. And then as time went on, it seemed it was, you know, very clear that it was not going to be the right fit or the right choice long term. And you can make those decisions, you know, when it's necessary. You know, you don't have to just like commit to something forever.
Right.
But if it's something that allows you to get your foot in the door one way or the other, then fuck it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, we'll use this as our segue over fully into the Hillhaven stuff. But like you don't have to be do 100%, like give 100% to everything you're in, but like you don't have to only be in one thing, right? Like you can do
Hmm.
an undisclosed project and Hillhaven and still write with other, friends and things like that. So, talk a little bit about kind of learning that and, this moment where we're moving into Hillhaven and going, here's something really cool that I want to do that's a little different than what I've been doing historically.
Sure.
Um, but it's something obviously that you believe in enough to put the time into it.
Yeah. I mean, there definitely are like difficulties that come up from being involved in multiple things. So I
Yeah.
have my what we'll call my day job, right? It's a very
Yeah.
very unique, strange day job, but we'll just that's what we'll call it for the
Hmm.
interview. Um I've got that, and then I've had Illustrium since high school, and then Hillhaven started becoming a thing. And so there definitely are times where it can be difficult because historically I have a hard time juggling stuff.
Yeah.
And especially on a creative level. So um and it can also be difficult because like anybody who knows the gig that I'm in, there are some very demanding songs that I need to
Yeah.
play. But Illustrium is where, as a guitar player, I'm constantly like at the very brink of just like total collapse as far as my ability level is concerned.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's difficult to switch. Like if I'm at the point where my chops are where they need to be for my day job, and then I have to go play an Illustrium song, it's tough. It's hard to do. I can't
Yeah.
necessarily like just pull it out. I have to like work on it for a while. And similarly on the creative side, if I'm really in whether it's Illustrium or Hillhaven or whatever I'm really focusing on at that point, it can be really hard to switch between the two mentally
Yeah.
because you're kind of like you're sort of immersed in the material that you're working on and whatever outside things are influencing that, especially if it's other music. And it can be difficult to switch gears. Like if I spend an entire day putting a Hillhaven song together, and then the next day Mike comes to my studio to work on an Illustrium track, like
Yeah.
I know that it's like a little bit difficult and sometimes a little bit frustrating for him to like fucking pull me out of it. Like, come on, man, come
Right.
on, let's do it. Like let's work on the thing that we're here to work on. Um, and so it can be difficult to balance those things and to like compartmentalize in that way, but it was really important for me to take that step because for the year and a half or so that I wasn't with the oh my God, I almost said the name. The
I would
year
have
and a
cut it,
half
but
or
yeah.
the year and a half or so that I wasn't playing in this gig, when there was a bit of a hiatus, and I was filling in with the other bands. uh there was a point where I um kind of lost sight of what I liked about music anymore because
Hmm.
I had gotten so swept up in kind of a lot of the vanity involved in it, and also just sort of focused solely on just like my ability to perform. And I had kind of lost all of the creative um motivation that
Yeah.
I may have had going into this. And I think anybody who picks up an instrument or starts, making music a significant part of their lives, the creative thing is like it's all there is at first,
Yeah.
and especially once you kind of develop that, and it becomes this like really like important personal thing. And then when that goes away, um, and you get just kind of caught up in the job of it, like at least in my experience, when it hit me that like, oh wait, I don't actually know if I like this,
Hmm.
it was like that was a big like, oh fuck kind of moment.
Yeah.
And so it was really important, for me to sort of realize that the sort of path to find my way back to that spot was going to be, what would eventually become Hillhaven's music, and to be um uh, I didn't realize it at the time when it was starting, but the fact that I am the front man of this was um, equally important because there's so much like personal subject matter as far as the
Yes.
lyrics are concerned. So it's just it feels it's personal on a level that I haven't done anything or really experienced musically before. Because obviously Illustrium stuff is all very personal because it's my baby and Mike's baby, and we're always we've been working on that for a really long time, and we, put out a bunch of records, and very very proud of all that stuff. But it's a little bit more of uh I think I take a little bit more of a producer role because I'm the one
Hmm.
that heads up the production of all that stuff, which I do with Hillhaven as well. But because we only focus on the instrumental stuff and our vocalist Jerry, like we basically give him free reign, like
Yeah.
minus, plus or minus a couple of notes. Um, we're basically just like, yeah, that's all you, bud. So it's really just about like the arrangement of the song and the riffs and the chord progressions, and it feels at least a lot more like analytical
Hmm.
academic kind of
Yeah.
approach to things, whereas Hillhaven's stuff was like, all right, I don't really need to give so much of a shit about like if the riff is like cool. It's really just about how things feel, and it's a very vocal forward genre in general. This kind of
Yeah.
octane area. So really focusing on like conveying the right emotions and making sure that the lyrics feel authentic, and that that kind of the emotions that produced the lyrics in the first place are coming through in the songs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot more like visceral,
Yeah.
a lot more raw. So that's the other thing about like death metal stuff, is that like there's a lot of like intellectual, especially with like
Hmm.
progressive technical stuff. Like there's a lot
Yep.
of big brain shit going on with the lyrics, and a
Yeah.
lot of metaphorical things, and so that was a big exercise for me on this thing too, which was because that was always my I think that was my biggest barrier when it came to writing lyrics, is that I would always think I had to do that kind of big brained
Yeah.
stuff. And it would always feel disingenuous. It would feel like it was like it's so obvious that I'm trying to sound smart, like I just sound like Plankton from SpongeBob, like you know what I
Right.
mean? Um, and it was like a big sort of eye opener of just like, oh, like the bands in this space, they just kind of say what they think,
Yep.
and like that's okay. I can do that.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
bad.
And I think that's, definitely one of the things I picked up on Hillhaven's sound is that authenticity that you were talking about, and like the feeling that, well, obviously it's probably a different situation than I link it to or whatever. It's one of those, you hear those words and you're like, I've been there. You know what I mean? Like I've had an experience that made me feel that way, that made me want to scream these things as well. And I think that's something that you do very well. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but like I think you have a really strong way with the way that you word this stuff to paint the image that maybe isn't exactly the situation that you went through, but it's a clear enough image for people to go, I've been in this room, like I've been in this darkness that he's dealing with. I've been where he was. And I think it's really cool because it's also kind of a empowering thing because like, I've personally dealt with mental illness as long as I can remember. So like hearing other people's struggles and then going, and they made it through. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's part of your message is like, you're going to make it through this thing. You just
Yeah,
have to fight the
absolutely.
shit to get there.
Yeah. No, and I mean I really appreciate that, man. Like historically I'm really terrible at not only receiving compliments,
Yeah.
but acknowledging that something that I created may have had some sort of positive impact on somebody,
Right.
aside from the fact that like, oh, I think the song's good,
Yeah.
like that's about as far as my brain is able to take it, where it's like, cool, thanks, man. And then it's like the fucking wall after
Right.
that of just like, this doesn't make any sense. But no, like that has been a really cool part of this. Is I mean, especially with these last two songs that we've put out, um seeing the number of comments of people that are able to connect it to something in their own life, as you said, even if it might not be the exact experience, like just being able to sort of like feel the emotion that's being conveyed in the song, and identifying with that and being like, I felt that way. And it's a really powerful and kind of humbling thing that I almost feel undeserving of, because like even
Hmm.
even talking about it right now, like knowing that like my band is by no means a household name, like we haven't even played our first show yet. it almost like there's the voice in the back of my head that's like, you're getting too big for your britches, pal. Like, just, like,
Right.
dial it back. But like, we have gotten a lot of really cool and like personal feedback from people on these songs, and it's very validating, and it's I think it kind of goes both ways, where like the person listening is like, it's kind of that, as cliche as it is, of like, oh, I'm not alone in this. And then when they comment on it, it's like, it's nice for me, because it's like, it's confirmation the
Right.
other way, of just like, okay, like, I'm not the only one doing this. So it's definitely an adjustment mentally, to like seeing comments like that. And I also feel, um I almost feel like a responsibility to respond to these comments with like some sort of profound might be the wrong word. That sounds egotistical to me, but like, I feel like I need to like really express like feelings
Yeah.
when I think, but like, all I'm saying is just like, thank you, and putting some emojis on them. But that's just because, and I feel like it's like not enough to like say thank you
Right.
to the people who are saying these things. But it's just like, the fact of the matter is, I don't really even entirely know how to articulate what
The
it feels
gratitude
like to get,
level and yeah.
yeah, to get that kind of, it's not even just gratitude. It's just like, it's just this, I'm even having a hard time talking about it now. Like, it's just this feeling of like, just like, I didn't really even think this could or would happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So uh it's a very unique feeling, and definitely not something that I um considered having to add to my like repertoire of like, mental gymnastics when I decided to be a frontman. But I mean, it could fucking be worse. I mean, we could just be getting absolutely shit on left and right, and
Yeah.
luckily so far we haven't been. The negative comments have been fairly minimal, and usually pretty funny too, so that
Right.
also that helps. But yeah, I mean, I'm rambling at this point because I don't really know how
Yeah.
to like describe how I'm feeling. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very like kind of gratifying
Yeah.
thing to see.
Yeah. You mentioned the negative comments, and I've had this conversation with damn near every artist that's been on here, because it's so funny to me that, like, keyboard warriors and all that, this song sucks. Cool, you don't play an instrument. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even meet the qualification to really judge the song. But also, like, even if you do, like, you're never going to say that to my face. Come to the show. Like, I'll invite you out to the show. You can come watch us live. And if at the end of that you still think I suck, come tell me. But like,
Right.
nobody's going to actually do that, because they don't want that confrontation. They want to feel big on the internet,
Sure.
you know?
I think like because I mean, I used to be that way, like early days in social media, like high school and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I recognize that in all likelihood, a lot of those comments are coming from younger people. It's either
Right.
it's either younger people, or, as you said, people that are just casual listeners, and they're not involved in music at all, and also all they have is their opinion, and that's
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
I also, but what's funny about it to me, especially sort of looking back on how I used to be, is like, people get so um angry, and luckily we haven't gotten a lot of animosity, really. It's never
Yeah.
never really anything of like, this is the fucking worst thing I've ever heard, like, you know what I mean? We haven't really gotten anything like that. Just got people being like, this is boring, which is like, I mean, as far as criticism is concerned,
Yeah.
like, that's, I'll
Pretty
take
pretty
it.
lame. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty middle of the road. Um but people get so mad about genres that they inherently don't enjoy.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I used to be the same way. And it's so funny to look back on it now, of just like, if you don't like a style of music, you're not gonna like when an
Right.
artist in that style of music puts out that style of music. Like,
Yeah.
of course you're not.
Right.
So it's so funny that those people somehow find their way to those videos and those comment threads, and just to be able to be like, this is trash, give up. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's like, but that's because, that person's favorite band is Suicide Silence, and
Right.
I'm over here doing my like octane emo metal
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like of course you don't like it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is totally fine. I don't, I don't want you at my shows, not because I have anything against you, but because you're not my target audience. Like, there's no,
Right.
I only want people at the shows that are gonna like it. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, yeah, it is a funny thing to kind of from like an anthropological perspective
Right.
to try to like examine of just like why do we do this,
Yeah. It is wild because, like, I'm not necessarily a country fan, but I've never once went out of my way to go to like a Morgan Wallen video and be like, hey, bud, you fucking suck. Sorry. Like, you know,
Yeah, right. And it's very weird because like like it's almost treated with the same animosity as like political arguments are
right.
sometimes, which like I mean, you can make your argument about why that's pointless too, because like you're not really going to change anybody's mind, like
Right.
if you're locked in a fucking duel on the internet with somebody, nobody's winning. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like and especially if you're fighting with somebody who's stupid, you can't beat stupid. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like, um, but uh, but with music and with like pop, art in general and pop culture and things like that, it's like it's so much broader. Like at least with American politics, you kind of got two sides,
Right.
or at least that's what's presented to us.
Yeah.
So it's like you're either on the left or you're on the right. And so it's like each side disagrees with the other person and they're constantly telling each other why they're wrong. But like music, there's like more than 1,000
Yeah. Oh,
different styles of music. And so it's like it's not about there's never been a conversation about like what's right and what's wrong or whatever. It's just like, hey, this type of music exists and these people like it.
yeah.
Um, and yet, all through high school, I'm just like, yo, fuck you if you play breakdowns. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, why was
Yeah.
I doing that? Like, there's no reason. Like, just don't listen to it, man. There's no
Yeah.
like you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah. No, it is wild. Like, I think I mean, you self-proclaimed to be a little bit of an elitist at one point. So I think there's a little bit of that mentality that goes into it, that like, oh, well, this is in the subgenre of metal and I like metal, and
Hmm.
I like this very niche,
Yeah.
Norwegian
Real
death
metal.
metal. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. You like Norwegian black metal. You're not gonna like
I like it
Necrogoblikon.
too.
Yeah.
It's just not what Hillhaven is. That's all.
Right, right. Yeah. Um, let's talk a little bit. I know we're coming close to the end here, but let's talk a little bit about, we touched on that mental health stuff and the importance of that authenticity for you. How cliche is it going to sound, but how like cathartic and healing is it for you to put those emotions into songs and like finally speak them into that existence?
Yeah, I mean it's extremely cathartic, more than I probably would have expected, just again not having a whole lot of experience in that department. Um it it kind of felt like and there's a reason that all of our album artwork has kind of single artwork, not album artwork,
Yeah.
but all of the artwork for the songs has a kind of like a relatively cohesive thing. There's the same figure is everywhere, and
Yeah.
there's usually something on fire. And so because originally the idea was to do an album for this, and that still could happen, but it kind of became clear that like we didn't have enough infrastructure put in
Yeah.
place yet to like do that the right way. So we just kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. But uh the original concept for the album cover wound up inspiring all of the artwork for the singles. And it's just that one guy who basically is setting shit on fire. I call him the arsonist. And because the whole thing, it just felt like it felt like I was taking all of the shit that had affected me in any kind of negative way over the prior couple of years to when I was working on the Hillhaven stuff, and I was just sort of like putting it all in one place and just burning it down,
Yeah.
you know, and it felt, kind of, if anyone's seen Arrested Development, it was like the satisfaction of burning down the banana stand,
Yeah.
um, and
It's a great reference.
and yeah, and so it was just, you just like you almost feel like it's like helping you kind of gain control over
Yeah.
those feelings and those emotions a little bit, because up until that point, like they're just all up here, and they're all just like constantly like overlapping with one another, and you kind of feel like you're going nuts.
Yeah.
um and so to be able to put all those things down, and to really feel like I um express things in an appropriate way, was definitely very helpful, and very healing. And ultimately that's what influenced this last song that we are closing the year out with, which it's very, I guess I should plug it. It's called This Time Tomorrow. It's the, it's definitely the sonic and emotional outlier of the songs that we've put out. Sorry, apparently something very bad is happening in Indianapolis. There's a lot of sirens.
It
Um,
happens.
but it was like it became clear that it was necessary to have a song that sort of was coming from a healthier perspective, and more future oriented,
Yeah.
and positive and optimistic, and that kind of stuff. And so that's it was very much always the plan to have this song kind of be like the thing that capped it all off,
Yeah.
of what whatever the release cycle was going to be, because there's been a lot of negativity in the music that we've been putting out thus far. And so I think it's important, um uh especially for the people that are relating to some of the negativity that's in those songs. I think it's important to have that sort of anthem of hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great way to cap off 2024. And like you said, there's obviously plans for stuff in the future, working out that infrastructure, especially with all the guys having the different projects that they're a part of and everything. So, you know, perfect world 2025. What are we hoping for? What do we expect as far as like new music, possible shows, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like to see the band, on tour to some degree. I don't think it's going to be very feasible to do, now we got an 8-month touring schedule.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? For a number of reasons. I mean, even if every single one of us quit the bands that we play for today,
right.
we're all in our 30s. We can't eat shit for 8 months. It's just
Yeah.
not how it works. I have kids. You know what I mean? So it's going to be just trying to make moves as intelligently as humanly possible, and recognizing that when it comes to tours, or one-offs or whatever it is, that we're going to be the opener. There's not going to be a whole lot of money as far as guarantees and stuff are concerned,
Right.
because it's a new band. There's a proving ground period. So knowing that going in, you want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, that like,
Yeah.
this is something that's going to help propel the project forward, and get it in front of the right audiences, and things like that. So that's really going to be the focus, I think. And also, the whatever other songs we have, like there definitely will, I mean, there will have to be new music in 2025.
Yeah.
Because basically, unless everything that I said just now completely does a 180, and
Right.
suddenly we have an 8-month touring schedule next year, we're gonna have something to keep ourselves top of mind. So music is definitely going to be on the forefront of that. But like I said, similar to the album, it's all kind of nebulous at the moment, and we are talking to different potential like team members and stuff
Yeah.
about what we can do in that regard. So hopefully we'll have a clearer picture of what that looks like soon.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, Two things before we fully close it out would be kind of on that, like the idea that came to mind. I don't know the logistics behind it, but let's say theoretically, one of the Danny Wimmer festivals has the other projects on. Would it be feasible to maybe pitch to Danny, hey, can Hillhaven open on day two or whatever, since everybody'd be in the same spot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's possible. It's just a matter of
Things
um
lining up and
yeah, it's a matter of logistics. It's a
yeah,
matter of finances. It's a matter of um you know, whether or not it doesn't really necessarily, obviously it matters if, you know, the bookers and the promoters would be into it,
Right.
but I think more so it's about, well, there's already 1,000 fucking bands on those festivals. So
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
are we even able to squeeze it into a time slot that would
Yeah.
be like worth everybody's time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So obviously, you know, we'd love to, you know,
At
hit a
least have the
festival or
discussion
two.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I mean, I know there was some talk about trying to submit for Warped and
Yeah.
whatever, and I have to say this as clearly as possible. That does not mean that we are playing the Warped Tour
Right.
dates. It was just talked about like, hey, this would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like making claims out here. But yeah, like and then just seeing what other tours are happening
Yeah.
that need, you know, support and seeing, you know, what might fit as
Yeah.
far as that's concerned, you know. So like I said, we're doing our best to work smart, not hard,
Yep.
on this, because we're all old and we're averse to hard work. So
Yeah.
we
I'm 39,
you
bud.
know.
You ain't got to tell me.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's everything's very kind of up in the air, but I think that now, you know, after how well Temple and Tomb seem to do, and I would hope that it seems like this time tomorrow is on a similar trajectory. Streaming wise anyway, the music video seems to already be doing better than Temple and Tomb's video did. For some reason that video didn't, like, the streaming went great, but the video was just kind of was not a high performing one, but whatever, you know, I don't understand YouTube.
Yeah. Shit
But like
happens.
I think at the end of, you know, now that we're doing all these interviews and the press cycle is like really kind of picking up, I think it'll be a little bit easier to have those conversations with people of like, hey, yeah, this, you know, this band doesn't have any touring under its belt yet, but like everybody in the band has a lot. And so
Right.
it wouldn't be very difficult to put a team together to be able to make that happen. And you know, here's some online numbers to kind of help
Yeah.
massage that conversation a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And then last question, so you can jump over to your other one, is kind of the standard outro. We'll do a 30-second plug. Obviously, I'll link all the socials and stuff, but where can people find you guys? What's the best way to interact? Things like that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we're on all the major streaming platforms. So you know, save and share and do all that kind of stuff. We're on Instagram is definitely our most active platform. We are on
Yeah,
TikTok. I don't understand how TikTok works, so
me either.
every day there is a struggle. But we're there if that's where you hang out. And all of our merch is available through a company called Cold Cuts Merch. If you go to our Instagram profile and hit the link in the bio, you can find the merch there. And the new song This Time Tomorrow is in rotation at Octane this month.
Awesome.
And honestly, that is probably the biggest way that you can show any support for us, is to tell them that you want to hear that song played
Yeah,
more. Because believe it or not, we do get paid from that. So
awesome.
you know, that would be and it, you know, obviously is very validating for the band and shows Octane that we're a band that's worth playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that would definitely be, if there was a call to action to be taken from this, please just tell Octane, just comment everywhere that that's the song that you want to hear.
awesome, man. I appreciate it. Stay safe in your travels with the day job, and you know, definitely looking forward to blasting this project as much as I can for you.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one, Chris.
You too. See ya.
See. Ya.